Hey guys, Matt here. This is my review of Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. This movie is directed by Sam Raimi, who previously directed Evil Dead as well as the original Spider-Man trilogy. This movie stars Benedict Cumberbatch and Elizabeth Olsen. Now, the plot of this movie is there's a girl named America Chavez who's able to travel the multiverse. When she's on the run from this evil being, she stumbles upon Doctor Strange and his world, the MCU, and so he must protect her. When he enlists the help of Wanda Maximoff, things get weird, strange, and a little out of hand. Now, if you've seen the trailer to this movie, then you know which characters are involved, but you don't really know the plot of this movie because it doesn't really give a whole lot away. So to avoid spoilers, I have to be very vague with this review. I can't really go too in-depth with certain characters because it will be a spoiler. Now, all I'm going to say is that going into this film, the three things that I felt this movie had going for it, the three reasons why I wanted to see this movie and that I was excited, was the character of Carl Baron Mordo, the, I would say, characters that certain trailers were alluding to that might be in this movie. And considering they were using the multiverse, I was like, oh, they might have this person or they including this group or what have you, as well as the multiverse itself. Those were the three things that had me the most excited, because Doctor Strange, not so much, because we'd seen him in the last couple films. I feel like this movie should have come before he made his cameos in No Way Home and Thor and all these other things, as well as Wanda. Seeing Wanda would have been neat, but considering we just got a whole show centered around her, I wasn't too excited for it. So all I can say is that the three biggest things that had me pumped, that had my expectations up here, were disappointing. I'll get to those in a moment. So, as far as the acting goes, Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange, he was fine. And I say that because I feel like every time we've gotten Doctor Strange, he's been a little different. He's either too arrogant or he's just too in a hurry to do his own thing and not really help people. This movie should have come after his first film, like shortly after, but because we've got him make these small appearances, we don't really know what his motivations are. We don't really know who he is as a character. The Iron Man films worked really well because they came one after the other. Well, the third one was after the first Avengers film, but still, that added a character arc. Here, yeah, they give Doctor Strange something to do, but aside from babysitting another kid, we have him dealing with his ex-love, Christine. So that was the one thing that added any emotional attachment to the character. Other than that, he's just there. He kind of takes a back seat to another MCU character that's in this film, and that's Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch. Now, she does the best job that she's done in anything she's been in thus far, in my opinion, because she not only plays Wanda Maximoff, this young Avenger, this person that has powers, this person that loved Vision, but also she plays the Scarlet Witch. So you see not only the nice, but also the serious, the mean, the somewhat sometimes evil side of her, as well as someone who wants to see her children. And there are moments where she is just straight up ruthless and horrific. And that's one thing I'll get to also in this review, is that there's a scene where she's just straight up like the Terminator, just walking, like dragging her foot because she's injured, just going after certain people in the movie. And it's like, wow, this is what I wanted to see out of that character. As far as the actress that plays America Chavez, I don't want to murder her name, but she's fine. She's like one of the MacGuffins, you could say, in this movie. She's the reason why Doctor Strange is in the film, and so she's kind of like the one that he watches over. She has a cool power where she can travel the multiverse. Her backstory's pretty tragic, but she's a nice addition, a nice young character that's added to the MCU that they could use going forward. Benedict Wong as Wong in this movie is also there, and he's really good. We've seen more from him in this movie than we also have in the other films, except for the first Doctor Strange movie. Christine, played by Rachel McAdams, she's also fine in this movie. She was in the movie for a lot longer than I thought she would be, and she was okay. Another reason that I'll get to later in the review. But yeah, I would say Elizabeth Olsen is the standout in this movie. We see different emotions from her that we hadn't before. We see different sides of her that we hadn't before. And yeah, she definitely deserves some sort of major nomination come Oscar or Golden Globe season because she's really good in this film. Another thing that has drawn people to this movie is the involvement with Sam Raimi. We hadn't seen Sam Raimi direct a superhero type film since the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies. I mean, this movie should have been called Sam Raimi's Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness because his fingerprints, his style, his tone, the way he directs is all over this movie. Which is a little. It's odd because the Spider Man films, aside from Spider Man 2 with the Dr. Octopus ER scene, there aren't a whole lot of horror elements in that movie. And so instead of just going that route of just having his style embedded in the film, but while also directing a movie that's just not super fantastical, but also not super horrific, he goes 75% horror in this film. Which some people, that's fine. I just don't know if this subject matter of Doctor Strange and the multiverse needed that. This movie, realistically, is about Wanda Maximoff and all the trauma and grief and sadness that she is still dealing with after her own show. And Sam Raimi likes to make horrific things silly. That's the best way I can describe his style. And there is so much of the Evil Dead type tropes, camera shots, and just action in this movie that this movie is pretty much a horror film. And I'm just not sure how I feel about that because this movie is supposed to focus on the multiverse. And like I said earlier, the three things that had my expectations up here were the multiverse itself, the cameos that were potentially going to be in this movie, but also the inclusion of Carl Mordo. And all three of those things were disappointments. And when I say that, I mean that it was exciting to see them, but we didn't get a whole lot of it. In fact, as far as the multiverse goes, we only get to experience, in certain scenes, one other universe, which coincidentally has Carl Mordo and the cameos in them, which were nice to see, but they were over real too quick. And I just feel this movie was a wasted opportunity. First, they got our hopes up with Spider-Man No Way Home with all these potential things they were going to bring in. Yeah, they brought in all these villains, which was awesome, which is the way it should have been done. Here, your biggest selling point is the multiverse. It's in the title, and they wasted it. Carl Mordo, a potential villain from the first movie, wasted. The cameos, as awesome as it were to see them, wasted. And some of them are, I would say, characters played by different actors. Some of them are played by actors that we know and love. And the only benefit of, that not being a long-lasting thing in this movie is that, they're not permanent. So we may get to see them again in different renditions and versions. Then again, we may not. This was like, studios were listening to all the fan service and were like, okay, people want to see this. They want to experience this. They want to, revisit this person or this group. Okay, we're going to let them have it. But then we're going to take it away really quick. And to me, you don't do that. You should have left it hanging. Or they should have done what No Way Home did, where they gave us what we wanted to see, but then they were like, okay, we're going to put it off to the side for now. We may revisit it. Here, they're like, okay, here, enjoy. It's like, here's a balloon. And then they pop it. It's disappointing. And don't get me wrong, there are some pretty impressive scenes and shots and sequences in this film, including a fight scene involving music. It's really well done. But it's only the only reason why I could see Danny Elfman doing the score for this movie. Yeah, they got to work together in the Spider-Man films, which was cool, and it worked. But here, Danny Elfman really only shines in that one scene where Doctor Strange fights another Doctor Strange, and they use musical notes as their weapons. That scene was cool. As far as the visuals go, visuals, for the most part, were okay. There's a couple scenes where you can tell characters aren't really standing next to a giant monster or standing in front of this, magical temple in Kamartosh and other things. Because Sam Raimi, his strong point was never CGI, was never special effects. Because you could always tell that his overlapping when it comes to special effects weren't crisp. They weren't the best they could have been. So this was Sam Raimi's horror movie version of Doctor Strange and Wanda Maximoff. It was like his way to show off what he can do and what he's famous for. And yes, there is a cameo from Bruce Campbell. I'm not going to tell you what he does or whatever, but it's just another reason why it's like, hey, I'm Sam Raimi. Remember all the silly, horrific things I did in Evil Dead? Well, here's a whole bunch of it just in the MCU now. And I just felt that the hype around this movie, the potential this movie had, outweighed what we got. Because all of the things that were supposed to be important, that were supposed to be impactful, the things that were supposed to, evolve the MCU going forward, they don't mean anything. The multiverse, when this movie wraps up, it was just a gimmick to get people to go see the movie. It didn't mean anything. And you have issues with the character of Wanda Maximoff. She's just focused on her children. She's not focused on her brother. She's not focused on Vision. And also, there's a villain in this movie that you don't see coming because the villainous turn is so abrupt. It's so sudden. It's like, oh. So, okay, that's the villain. Where's the reason? Where's the logic? It's just out of nowhere? Okay. So, because this movie had cameos, it had Wanda Maximoff, it had Doctor Strange, it had things that we were familiar with and things we wanted to see, but to me, they weren't used as well as I thought they could have been. I'm going to give Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness a C+. There were things I liked, but I kind of feel like if you're not a Sam Raimi fan and his style and the way he does things, you're not going to enjoy this film as much. Yes, it has the multiverse and things that we were looking forward to, but unfortunately, they're short-lived. All the things that were great in this movie didn't last very long. I can make a couple jokes there, but I'm not going to. So until next time, guys, see ya.